A few weeks back, I made a video diving into United's battle-scarred centre-halves, the type of defenders who'd take a boot to the head for the badge. And it struck a chord because for a lot of fans, it's these players, maybe not the most talented on the pitch, who stay in the heart long after they've hung up their boots. So what about their equally combative teammates in midfield? The ones who bled for every tackle and left opponents dreading the sight of them. As time's moved on, so has the role of the midfielder. The demands on these players in the 60s were worlds apart from those of the 70s and kept evolving decade by decade. Nowadays, when you think of a United midfielder, you might picture a Carrick, a Scholes, maybe a Veron or Fernandes. Certainly not players anyone would call Hardman. Even those like Matic and Herrera, whose game was built on disrupting play, wouldn't fall into that same old-school Hardman category. And yet, the deeper I looked, the clearer it became that the true midfield enforcers, the ones who still have a place in the hearts of those lucky enough to have seen them play, are a rare breed. Today we're going to go through 5 of United's most unforgettable midfield warriors, starting with none other than Nobby Stiles. Standing at just 6'5", Stiles was no taller than his England teammate Alan Ball, but that never stopped him from being a force. He won leagues and European Cups for United, plus a little something called the World Cup with England. For all his achievements, he was often criticised for his rough style of play. Despite his stature, he was what we'd now call an enforcer. Stiles thrived in the game's more destructive side. He'd mark opponents so closely it was as if he was wearing their kit. He famously neutralised Eusebio in the 1966 World Cup semi-final and did it again against Benfica in United's 1968 European Cup final. Matt Busby loved his tenacity and his knack of winning the ball, using him to snuff out attacks before they could start. Stiles didn't mess about. He was known for putting the boot in and fans loved him for it. Then we come to Bryan Robson. For my money, the best I've ever seen. When United signed Robson, Ron Atkinson didn't bat an eye at the fee, and it turned out to be a bargain. Robson was 10 years ahead of his time, a player with all the footballing ability he could want, yet that's not what fans remember him for. He was as hard as nails, never backing down. He went into tackles with a ferocity that rattled opponents and carried a mediocre team to trophies they might otherwise have missed. As his career wound down, he was still there, flattening players and pushing his team forward. Having lost a little pace after a botched operation on his knee in his youth days, Norman Whiteside soon moved from playing up front to joining Robson in midfield. At 16, Norman was often described as a child in a man's body, as he knocked experienced centre-halves all over the pitch. Don't forget, this was in the days when, to a large extent, anything went on a football pitch. This didn't seem to intimidate him. In fact, it appeared to have the opposite effect, as he was more than happy to plough through players, leave a foot in, or just generally be an immovable object in what was a formidable midfield pairing. A large part of me still hopes Steve McMahon has nightmares about him. When Robson joined United from West Brom, he joined someone who had made the same journey just a month before, and who the media on the main ignored. But United fans had a place in their heart for Remi Moses, a local lad and United fan who found his way to United via the Midlands. Remi didn't have the greatest luck with injuries and had to retire at the age of 28, but in his 8 years at United, he played 150 times, scored 7 goals, had a great engine, and was described as having left an indelible mark on many an opponent's leg. Finally, we come to a man many people feel should still be involved in some capacity at the club, Roy Keane. Keane was bought for a record fee, ostensibly to replace the former record fee holder Bryan Robson, who was reaching the end of his career by this point. He was similar on the pitch to Robson in many ways. The great engine, the box-to-box ability, an eye for a goal, and an indistinguishable will to win. He also shared a combative, win-at-all-cost approach that got him into hot water, which Robson avoided purely by playing in a different era. The Haaland incident, getting Southgate stuck under his boot, the swing and a miss at Shearer were just some of the highlights of a player with balls big enough for a wheelbarrow and a record of 11 sending-offs in 12 seasons at United. He was United's Hardman through and through. If you'd lasted this long, do me a favour, a like or a subscribe would be nice. I'm starting to do live streams occasionally, and some of you might like that, some of you might not, but it's going to be there if you want it. Thanks a lot.